Hello everybody, my name is Velma Dinkley. I am your host for today for this video on the Demons and Damsels horror that center female protagonists, which is a review and not a analytical as you might think. And it's all horror movies. How Christmassy. The host for today, Brooklyn, otherwise known as the dramatic otaku, is currently going through a mental crisis because of work, thus why I am here. Unfortunately, if you do want an actual analytical on some of these horror movies, then they'll be linked up in the iCard. There's a couple good ones I think are very, very nice, but you got the most analytical character and decided to put her on horror movies. Today we will be talking about a few different horror movies, I think about 5. And before we begin this review, heavy trigger warnings for sexual assault, assaults in general, sexual themes, body horror, gore, the occult, and demons, jump scares, stuff like that. All these topics will be talked about in these reviews, as well as these horror movies having these topics in them. One of them is, or a couple of them are straight up just about the topics of sexual assault and rape revenge fantasies. That is what some of these horror movies are, because they center women. Let's get on with the reviews, starting with probably the most infamous horror movie with female protagonist and a female monster, Jennifer's Body. So this is a pretty small review, but first of all, ignoring the entire thing being about a woman, Chris Pratt is in this film. I didn't even notice until his name was in the credits. Second of all, I basically knew the whole plot of the film, but by no means how and why things happened, as well as just like the gay. I saw this from a very queer lens, clearly. And I will say this film is chronically early 2000s, but I personally love it. It is everything that I could ask for. And before you ask, it is a female revenge story, basically. I love it. My notes were very simple because I hadn't intended on reviewing this, but I did not expect an Aquamarine nor Hannah Montana reference in this fucking film. It did come out in 2009, but first of all, Aquamarine is the last movie I expected to be referenced in a horror movie. But Hannah Montana as well?
You're a jerk. Wow, nice insult, Hannah Montana.
Chronically early 2000s. Oh my god, did people actually talk like that in the early 2000s? Also, something that I noticed is that you don't typically see horror films of you don't see films anymore past the early 2000s of girls just eating their hair. Because I used to do that as a kid. I used to just stuff like that. I noticed that in the film and realized, hey, I don't see that often anymore. I don't see girls putting their hair in their mouth anymore. Was that just an early 2000s thing? Also, this is about a sex scene in the film. Also, Chip's reaction to Needy having a panic attack while they're having sex. His response is being, "Am I too big?" That made me fucking lose it. That was a little bit too funny for me. Honestly, it's great, it's campy, and is defo a cult classic. I gave this one an 8 out of 10. Now, moving on from something that I was expecting to something that I wasn't expecting, Titane. What the fuck did I just watch? I got recommended this film because I was following someone on Instagram who was doing a horror movie every day of October. And on about the 5th day, they watched Titane. And I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. All they said is that the plot centers around a woman fucking a car.
And I'm in a serious relationship with my car.
Yes, that was also my first thought. This person said that that was it and that I should watch it because I was so intrigued and confused as to what they were saying. And in this film, the main character does in fact fuck a car. But they lied, they also fuck a fire truck. Titane centers around a woman, Alexia, a serial killer with a love for cars. In the start of the film, you see a young Alexia get into a car crash with her father and have a titanium plate be put into her skull. Then we see her as an adult and as a dancer who dances on cars as her job. Then we see her have sex with a car. Yes, we see it. And the rest of the film details her being on the run for being a serial killer, and to escape this, she takes on the identity of a missing child grown up, Adrian. Adrian, however, has a roid-induced firefighter father who's very protective over him, and by him I mean Alexia, who's pretending to be Adrian. The rest of the film is kind of a blur as the pair get closer in a father-son or a father-daughter way, as well as like the body horror aspect of Alexia becoming fully titanium under her skin, and you see her skin start to get holes in it as she's also carrying her car child hybrid. Yes, that was a pun to full term. Did I forget to mention that she got pregnant by the car? Along the way in the story, Adrian's father pretty much figures out that this isn't her son, and like the first instant that we find out of someone realizing that Alexia isn't Adrian is Adrian's mother who is still alive. I didn't think she was, but she is. But Adrian's father pretty much has this mantra of no matter who you are, I love you to Alexia. That's why this bond sort of grows. So he figures out that Alexia isn't Adrian, but doesn't particularly care because he loves her assumedly paternally. The film ends with Alexia fucking the fire truck and then her oil breaking and going into labor, where she struggles to get her way back to Adrian's father's house and confesses her romantic love for him.
I might straight up be coping, but on second thought, it's probably actually the fact that they do have this paternal and child bond, and just that Alexia doesn't know how to convey her love for Adrian's father in any other way, solely because if you actually see Alexia's relationship with her father at the start of the film, she hates him. She does not like him at all. So it would make sense that she doesn't know how to reciprocate paternal love to someone, thus why she goes in to kiss Adrian's dad. But I could be coping and I could be wrong. She still tries to fucking kiss him and he's not about it, so yeah.
And he freaks the fuck out, understandably, but he sees that she is giving birth. So with his training, because since he is a fireman, he also gets paramedic training, he helps her give birth, of which she promptly dies. And he is left with the hybrid child, who we can see has a titanium spine. The final line of the film being "I'm here." He pretty much gets to relive being a father with this hybrid child. Now, I'm not gonna stop making that fucking pun. I have so many mixed feelings about this film. It is so fucking weird. It is both like a body horror, gore kind of horror, also a psychological horror. But seeing as it is a Belgian/French film, it does have that aspect of being like having a really deeper underlying meaning to the film. It's just so hard to get to what the actual meaning is of the film when you're so focused on the fact that this woman has gotten pregnant by a car. That being said, I actually don't think her fucking the car is the weirdest part of the film. I think her relationship to Adrian's father is the weirdest part of the goddamn fucking film. Of course, the car fucking was weird, but also because of its bizarro concept, it is so just compelling to watch. Ironically, like a car crash. If you take away the car fucking premise, you have a regular pregnant serial killer, which is a sentence and a half, to take place of a missing son, and then have the parent and the serial killer bond. That genuinely is an interesting concept, especially since this bitch is an absolute coward, but you won't understand that until you watch the film for yourself. I personally, for the concept of the film, really enjoyed it. I did get lost for a bit, but I thought it was pretty solid. So I actually gave it an 8 out of 10. I had a predistinction of what Titane would be based on the fact that it is from Belgian and French filmmakers. At least when I look online, it says it's Belgian and French. The next one that we're going to be talking about, Alison's Birthday, is an Australian horror movie. I have my own gripes with Australian horror movies. Similar to Titane, where the countries it's from and the genre give me a good vibe on how I will feel when the film ends. Alison's Birthday is an Aussie horror film from the early 80s. That told me everything I needed to know about how I will feel going out of this film, and I was 100% correct. Especially when it comes to films released in the 70s and 80s. I found personally, as an Australian, that they fall under one of 3 categories. 1, critically acclaimed masterpiece that still impresses people to this day, think Mad Max. 2, the most disgusting and depraved thing that you will have ever seen, and for the example for that is a horror movie in which what is shown on screen is kangaroos being massacred, which I can't remember the name of the film, but I distinctly remember that film's premise and it being banned in Australia. I actually think it was an American film filmed in Australia, but still. And then the third example of Australian films is bog standard mediocrity. This falls into the third category. So Alison's Birthday is option 3. The only truly disturbing part about Alison's Birthday is that I sat through the entire hour and 40 minutes of this fucking thing. Alison's Birthday is just a cult horror movie. Now, not a cult classic horror movie, because that would make it interesting. No, it is just a horror movie about a cult and the occult, where Alison has no real personality and folds to the whim of her aunt like a paper bag. She is Sleeping Beauty in this film, the protagonist who is barely in her own film. Peter is an okay side protagonist, but still standard, and the actual horror in this film is really boring. Now, I know I said that this was going to be a film review of multiple series with female protagonists. Alison is technically the protagonist of her movie. Think every like B-list horror movie and how the hero isn't particularly a woman, but the protagonist sometimes is a woman. Yeah, it's that. The hero is Peter, but Alison is the protagonist. It's weird. They have a protagonist shift halfway through. I wanted to talk about this film and how fucking mediocre it was, because I can't talk about it with anyone else except for you guys. See, the opening film actually gave me hope. It's very The Craft, very round the twist. I'd thought I'd landed on a hidden Aussie gem. Time skip 3 years, and it's every cult-oriented horror film ever, except everyone has an Aussie accent except for the main villains who are British. Now, they do explain why some of the villains have British accents, but it kind of gave away that they are the villains. And speaking of the end, spoiler alert, they don't stop the cult, and Alison ends up in the body of a 104-year-old woman. Don't ask me how it happens. May I say, the scream this woman makes as she was directed to, and the face that she makes, was the truly most horrific part of this film, and it is the last 2 minutes of this film. You could have just given me a short with the last 2 minutes of this film, and I would have thought that was fantastic. Genuinely, it is the most disturbing part of this film, and I applaud that old woman. She is long dead by this point, but wow, she is fantastic. She is wonderful. I think she did the most fantastic final shot that I have seen in an Australian movie ever, but having a good start scene and a stellar end shot to the film, not even end scene, end shot, does not make up for the fact for the like hour and 30 minutes in between those two events were complete mediocrity. Honestly, I mentioned Around the Twist earlier, which is an Australian TV show that did like quirky little episodes. I think they could have done this concept significantly better, and I'm almost certain they did at one point. I gave this movie a 3 out of 10. Thank you, Australian cinema. Ginger snaps. So this one I'm going to put its own trigger warning onto. I do not recommend this if you're sensitive to suicide or death. I won't say there's gore because it is weirdly censored, but there is definitely blood. A lot of blood in this film. So Ginger Snaps is kind of absurd and more of a like absurdist horror movie about sisters Bridget and Ginger, two emo ass sisters, Bridget being 15 and Ginger who is about to turn 16, neither of them having had their period up until this point. They are both late bloomers and reject the concepts of femininity for a more edgy and death-filled existence. The two of them having a death pact, a pact where they die together. The town is currently in fear of a mysterious monster that is currently killing dogs. Cut to these girls at school. This film is sometimes so humorously forced. There's a scene in the beginning where after some of the dog carcasses have been found and it's been distinguished that there is something killing dogs and ripping apart their bodies, then the first school scene we see, they are in a field, a flat ass field, a regular sports field. There is no curve to this field, it is flat. And Bridget, they're on the school field doing PE, and Bridget gets tackled by the mean girl of this film into a dog carcass. Are you telling me that on this flat field of the school they didn't see the dog carcass and that they didn't clean the dog? I wouldn't actually put it past them to not clean the dog carcass, but they didn't see it and they weren't warned to not play on the field because it's a dog carcass. When trying to get back at the girl who body checked Bridget into the dog carcass, Ginger gets her period for the first time, then getting attacked by the ugliest werewolf I have ever seen. And she gets dragged into the woods. This is a scene change, this is at night. Bridget and Ginger manage to get away from the werewolf that in the end gets hit by a car and disintegrates immediately, which seems so cartoony, and there was so much blood. The rest of the film goes through Ginger transforming into a werewolf and Bridget trying to save her, which in the end ends up in Bridget killing her in their room, saying that she will not die in this room with her. Good on you, Bridget. Killing her with the knife that Ginger is seen at the very start of the movie with, mimicking harming herself. The ending shot being Bridget holding the transformed monster that is her sister with the morning light streaking into their room. To start with, the male characters in this film are so Beavis and Butthead coded. Very early 2000s humor stricken, but unlike with Jennifer's Body, which this is extremely like Jennifer's Body, it is directly looked down upon by the main characters. Also, speaking of the main male characters, the drug dealer. How old is he? Why is he sleeping with 15 to 16-year-olds? Yuck. Why is he trying to rizz up Bridget, who is 15 in the film, but is a year younger than Ginger? I stand with Ginger attacking and killing this man in her werewolf form. Go sis. I noted multiple times through this film how old is the drug dealer because they didn't tell us. And he fully gave me the ick the entire time. I didn't like him. he was the only really there to be a set piece, to be quite honest. To get Bridget the recipe for the cure that she didn't end up fucking using on Ginger. So his purpose is just useless. Which honestly, having a man without any use, I kind of like, but still, he's fucking weird. On the topic of Bridget, I was so distracted in this film, to be 100% honest. Like, I watched the main parts, but everything in between, I kind of was just like, this is very Jennifer's body. I don't know really what's going on. What the fuck is going on with Bridget's wig? Why do I know Bridget? So I was trying to remember that Bridget, otherwise known as Emily Perkins, was in fact Emily Perkins and what movie I knew her from. I found it out. It was multiple movies, but specifically Another Cinderella Story. But yeah, I just thought this film was very similar to Jennifer's Body, and I have seen that in it be directly compared to Jennifer's Body in other analytical videos, but this is in a slightly different way. Instead of a friends and a romance, it is like sisters and sisterly bonding and a sisterly connection. And while I want to analyze like the feminine hero and the portrayal of close female relationships in horror movies, and that is definitely something I'm interested in looking at and making a video essay about, I'm currently too lazy. Work is killer, pun not intended. And the similarities were just incredibly similar between the two films, especially in the transformation of Jennifer and Ginger. In terms of the practical effects of the film, I love the way that Ginger transforms, and the tail growing out of her spine was actually pretty interesting. I love that the like fashion of the film is just so cool. And that might be just because I have more of a gothic style, but her pre-transform style was pretty cool. Specifically in the just before transformation look, she looks very much like a Buffy the Vampire Slayer vampire, except she's a werewolf. And her transformed wolf, while really, really ugly, and only having one face, the puppet itself actually reminds me a lot of Ghostbusters and the like monster dog things from the first Ghostbuster films. It reminds me quite a lot of that. Also, transformation scene itself was cool, but so fucking corny. That being said, it's the only scene that actually shows something a little gory or uncomfortable, that being Ginger's actual full transformation. As to get out of showing proper human gore and attacks in the film does a tactical shaky cam, but when doing it so often, it's not helpful and extremely noticeable. Then what we see is the result of the attack, mutilated dogs and etc. And what makes this the most evident is when one of Ginger's transforming victims attacks a child, but in reality all he's doing is shaking the child and going rah. I mean, a kid would still scream, but not to the degree that that kid was screaming in that attack. Because literally that's it. All he's doing is shaking a child. Face not dug into the child to mimic that he's biting them. He's not wrapping his arms around the child, just holding the child like this and shaking them. Then finally is the voyeuristic aspect of the film. Now this is more for a video essay idea that I just found interesting, but by the way the film shows off death, and especially around girls. It's very voyeuristic. Their face is never mutilated, never slashed, kept pristine, and it's evident in their little death showcase at the start of the film and how the final shot of the film is framed. Even Bridget says how she's uncomfortable with people seeing her dead body, how it's voyeuristic, or how voyeuristic it would be. I just want to note that because I think that could be a solid essay topic for anyone interested. Overall, this film got a 5 out of 10 for me. Now, the last film of the day is Teeth. This one gets the strongest trigger warning, solely because if you are at all sensitive or get triggered, PTSD, anything like that with the themes of sexual assault of any kind, please do not watch this film. The entire concept of Teeth is around a girl's continuous sexual assault from multiple male characters in her life, and it is visually depicted multiple times. Also, in the first 5 minutes of the film, it is depicted from one child to another child. Then within the first 20 minutes of the film, it is visually depicted. Please do not watch this film if you are at all sensitive in any way, shape or form to sexual assault. It is not worth it. If you can't carry on with that, then thank you guys so much for watching. Have a good day, because I will be talking about this in this review as well. So I hope you guys have an amazing day or night, and I'll see you guys next time. Now for the rest of you who would like to know the review of Teeth. Again, if this triggers you, please do not watch this film. I don't particularly want to describe the plot of the film. The most limited description I can do is that our protagonist is an abstinence promising all-American girl who has a meet-cute with an abstinent boy who, once getting close to her, assaults her, but when he's putting it in, it gets ripped off by this wonderful thing called vagina dentata. The movie continues with our protagonist getting assaulted multiple times with multiple limbs of multiple different types being ripped off multiple men. And she finds out what is ripping everything off of men that assault her, called vagina dentata. Her mother dies, and at some point in the film she has consensual sex for the first time that is dubious, and then upon finding out that this consensual sex was a bet, castrates the dick. And because of this, finding and figuring out how to use her powers, and then promptly kills 2 more people for good. This in general is a horror and has comedy in it as well, and I want to talk about a few plot points just in dot point form. Number 1, this film critiques a lot. Obviously rape culture, but also purity culture and how they can go hand in hand. The school censors a vagina in a textbook, and the teacher can't even say the word vagina, yet it's a male character that says vulva. Bold of you to assume that a teenage boy knows what a vulva is. The main character then has to take the sticker off later to learn about her own body, and then is also Christianification of rape culture before our protagonist is assaulted. I'm not a huge fan of it, and I do like how purity culture is then made to be really cult-like after her assault. 2, the smokestacks in this film are really eerie. That's it. The gore. Good gore. We get images of dicks fallen on the floor, and we get to see the stump. The decapitated stump too. Honestly, impressive. It's not shown for long on screen, especially the first one, but there's also a fucking audio cue when vagina dentata gets a chompin'. There is just an audible chomp. And on this point too, the last main character we see get his dick chopped off, the dog eats his dick. The dog eats his decapitated dick. That is so fucking funny. That is the ultimate win, especially since he is such a disgusting character. That is the ultimate win. Oh my god, that's so fucking funny. 4, we do also have medical assaults, still sexual assault, but medical assault in the film and malpractice. I was shouting malpractice when this was happening. This is something that was also really funny. When the vagina dentata clamps onto this man's fingers and freaks out, and our protagonist freaks out too, she reels back on the bench that she's on and pulls this man with him. That was so funny. It shouldn't have been as funny as it was, but it really was that funny. Number 5. Okay, I said that there was a consensual sex scene. I'm gonna call this dubious in terms of how actually consensual it was. First of all, prior to her being more dubious on this consent side, how she acts in the bath is such a fucking mood. In the bath, she is given a pill by the guy that she has consensual sex with, who he says his mother takes it for anxiety. To which, after coming out of the bathroom, she, while still conscious and making conscious decisions and having sober moments, she acts a little off her head, which makes me think that he drugged her a little bit, especially since afterwards they're having alcohol. Yeah, the pill that he gives her is very sketch, in my opinion, thus dubious consent. He lights the room all romantically, and she says how this is how she imagined her first time, and the next scene we hear a vibrator and see her enjoying herself sexually, and he's pleasuring her properly before they actually have sex. Now, the pill did make her a little loopy, and that's what makes this entire scenario dubious, and I really thought he was assaulting her, which it didn't seem like he was, like, in the context of the film. It looks like she was actually consenting to this by the solid fact that he was actually treating her like a human, but I still didn't like it because of how dubious the consent was, solely because he gave her that pill before they did anything sexual together. He did make a bet about having sex with her, and he did get his comeuppance, because he, made a bet into sleeping with her, and when she finds this out, she cuts his dick off because they go for round 2. And it's the most gruesome imagery in the entire film. Yes, all men. None of the men in this film are good. Even the dad, who doesn't assault his stepdaughter in any way, he is also in the wrong for not kicking out his creepy ass son until his wife dies because of him. And when I say because of him, because of the son. The son, the entire film, makes comments about the daughter, and they're not related, but it's still fucking weird. And he makes all these comments and the dad does nothing. So I still think that the dad, while he is the only good man in the entire film, he's still partially in the fucking wrong. That could just be my opinion, but he was letting his son be that disgusting towards his daughter. Even if it's his stepdaughter, he saw her as his actual daughter, and he didn't do anything until the son essentially killed his wife. Number 6, this is something funny about the film. The operating scene for the 2 guys that lived was so fucking funny to me. Generally, the film was an uncomfortable roller coaster. There's a lot of discussion to be had about the themes of the film, and the beginning of the film was genuinely uncomfortable. But as she gets more confident and figures out her power, you feel what she feels, and you grow more onto the side of kill that motherfucker and cheer her on when she actually does. Generally, this gets a 7 out of 10. It made me squirm, it made me uncomfortable, and it made me feel for the protagonist, and it made me invested. It was pretty damn good. Out of all of these films, this is probably the one that I would describe as the most horrific. If I was to rank it on an actual horror scale, least would be, I would say, Alison's Birthday, then Titane, then Jennifer's Body, then Ginger Snaps, then Teeth. Though Ginger Snaps and Jennifer's Body could probably be switched around. Genuinely, I really liked most of the films that I watched on this review. If you did watch these films, what did you guys think about it? And I hope you guys enjoyed this video, even though this is the weirdest possible video I could have uploaded in December. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been Velma Dinkley, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.